This is northern Idaho, a place filled with majestic forests and cold, clear lakes and rivers. This is the homeland of the Stichwamsh, or discovered people, now known as the Coeur d'Alene Indians. Through the millennia, they have survived through what was provided in nature, mountains and meadows with huckleberries and camas roots, wetlands with waterfowl and water potatoes, lakes and streams churning with trout and salmon, and forests filled with wildlife. These natural resources remained at close reach and part of one's life on Earth.
In our native lands was at a peaceful state because they lived with nature. Everything that came from the earth was their livelihood.
There was a time when the Creator put those animals here, and He gave each one of them a purpose. Each one of them something they were responsible for. Each one of them had a significant part of the history of the people.
Our goal here in the wildlife program is to try and make sure that all the wildlife resources are well taken care of, not only on the reservation, but throughout all the Aboriginal territory of the tribe. We're trying to make sure that these wildlife resources are available for all kinds of purposes, including cultural, subsistence, religious, and recreation.
One of our main focuses is maintaining a healthy big game population. This is because it's so closely linked to tribal culture and subsistence. For all the big game species, one of our main priorities is just to determine the composition of the population. So we'll do counts where we can estimate the number of calves per cow or fawns per doe, and also the number of males per females as well. Our goals for elk revolve around understanding how they use the reservation. And how we do this is by capturing elk during the winter and collaring them. And then we can figure out their migration patterns, their corridors, and their critical habitat. Our main tool for moose management is our ground-based surveys. With these, we do a couple times a year, and with them we estimate the population of moose on the reservation. As wolves have been recovered on the landscape, we've been doing more and more work monitoring their populations. We do this by, in the spring, going out and trying to determine den sites and rendezvous sites. Then we can estimate the number of active packs in the reservation and nearby areas. We also do quite a bit of work with non-game species. One of the big focuses over the past 10 years has been forest carnivores. It's things like fisher and lynx and wolverine. We started with hair snare surveys to try to get baseline data on where they were located around the Aboriginal area. And we followed it up with a couple trapping studies where we were collaring fishers and finding their movements. And then finally, we've been doing a lot of bait stations with cameras on them to try to detect the more rare species like the wolverine.
Really the biggest key to all the work we do is habitat restoration. Without healthy habitat, you can't really have healthy wildlife populations.
The wildlife program is putting a lot of time and effort into restoring habitat. It's not only good for the soils, but it's good for the creek, and we'll bring the beavers back and then eventually the salmon is what we're hoping for.
Well, in 2001, we were actively engaged in the mitigation and compensation at Albany Falls Dam. And since that time, the tribe has acquired approximately 4,000 acres to compensate those impacts at that facility. The properties that were targeted initially under the mitigation program where the most impacts occurred at Albany Falls were wetland desired habitat types. Concurrent with that acquisition, the tribes and managers in the region were tasked with maintaining those properties to a certain standard and enhancing those properties as we move forward in time.
Mother Earth is taking care of us. We need to try to help take care of her, and this is one way of doing it, restoring these wetlands.
The Goosehaven Lake Wetland Enhancement Project was approximately 15 acres of farmland that's been converted to a wetland complex. And part of that conversion occurred with excavation, creating islands and channelization in order to retain water within the property.
Hangman Creek flows north and west out of here, joins into the Spokane River on the west side of the city of Spokane. And this was one of the areas where the Coeur d'Alene tribe once harvested salmon. The Coeur d'Alene tribe has directed us to do what we can to prepare this landscape for the return to salmon.
So planting is probably about 2/3 of our tasks that we do throughout the year. Another third is probably spraying weeds. We try to get rid of all the noxious vegetation because it tends to outcompete all the native vegetation that we're trying to restore out here.
One of the key processes that we find within the riparian zones is the way beaver hold water on the landscapes. They create these dams that form these complexes of pools and riffles that turns out to be ideal trout habitat, ideal salmon habitat. So we're trying to reestablish these deciduous forests along these stream corridors and drainage bottoms so that we can have an abundant beaver population, which will translate to in-stream trout and salmon habitat.
We're helping the earth, trying to do our part for wildlife, for the animals, for all the amphibian life, for the water. The creek's right there. Water runs right by here. The salmon used to run up here. Maybe someday they'll be able to do it again. That's what we're shooting for.
By restoring habitat and carefully managing the wildlife species that we do have, hopefully we will ensure that the wildlife resources of the area will be able to be enjoyed for many years to come.